Well, thanks everybody. We'll be starting in about a minute or two. Becky Soglin. Thanks everybody for attending today. Please make sure you go into the chat and sign in. It's great to see you all. There's the Mustins, Tara, Steve, Shelly, Ryan. Kind of love that gallery view so that we can see everybody. Hey, there's Jeffrey Dancer, Greg's, good to see you. And I do have to say, I love Sean McIntyre's photo with that little orange cape. If you go to the gallery view and go see it, it's pretty fun. There's Patty McCarthy as well, so. Excellent, excellent. So it's my understanding that Devin is like totally on the ball and he has got his slide all ready. So we will get started with our meeting. So welcome everyone to the Iowa City New Rotary. And as we do every week, we will start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please feel free to join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, well, thank you all. I encourage you to mute your microphone so that we can kind of deal with any of that additional noise that might be happening. My name is Barb Thomas. I'm your president for this 2021 Rotary year. And as we normally do, I'm going to turn it over quickly to Devin, who's going to provide a few Zoom tips. Devin?
President Barb. Yes, please do mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Love to have people talk, but background noise is almost inevitable so that we don't hear your paper scrunching or whatever you're doing in the background, unwrapping your candy. And if you do unmute and happen to cause noise, I will hunt you down and mute you ruthlessly, but happy to do it. The other thing that I want to point out is the gallery view versus the speaker view. That is a fun way to be able to see either all of the participants in the call who have their video on, or to just look at the speaker and only focus on what they're saying. So I encourage you to check out the gallery view, especially now. Even through the presentation, it's kind of fun to see what people's reactions are to different things. But then switch to that speaker view if you really want to focus in on what they're saying. And pro tip here for the presenter. So when the presenter comes on, you should have an option to slide the screen one way or the other to be able to see either more of her slides or more of her. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. If you want to take a closer look at the slides, you can slide. There's a little bar in the middle, at least on my computer. You slide it over, see the slides a little bit better. So check that out. Of course, there's reactions. You can raise your hand if you have questions or if you want to say anything. And then, like Barb has said a couple of times, if you could go in the chat and sign in, would love to have everybody's name for attendance. And if you want to chat, obviously that's the place to do it with other people. And there's a way to message people individually as well. Well, good to see you all. Back to you, President Barb.
Great, thanks so much, Devin. So we are going to give you an opportunity to practice some of those Zoom skills. So if you'd like to, you can go to that reaction tab and raise your hand if you would like to introduce yourself, if you're a guest, or if you're a visiting Rotarian. We would love to know that you are here. And if you would like to introduce your guest, you're welcome to raise your hand there as well. And then Devin will call on you. So here it comes. Do we have any guests today? Does anybody want to raise their hand and welcome anyone? I always wonder about Ryan Bell. Ryan is like brings the most guests ever. So anyone with a guest? I'm going to turn it back to you, Devin.
Not seeing anyone right now. If you don't, oh, somebody jumping in.
Let's see. Looks like it's all the regular troops. Okay, well, great. We'll keep moving on then. So next we'll move on to announcements. And so here I come, your friendly broken record that is just going to remind you that yes, it's time to renew your dues. And if you have not done so, please do so soon. We'd like to have an accurate record of all members by July 1st. So why July 1st? It is because we pay dues for you on July 1st to Rotary International. And so we would prefer to not pay for dues for people who are not going to be members. Only makes sense, right? We're trying to do good work here. And what your dues do, well, they do a lot of good work. They help with international causes as well as causes within our community. So I want to encourage you to renew your dues. Remember that if you have already set up for ACH payments, where basically a quarterly payment is taken out of your bank account without you doing a single thing, if you've done that previously, you don't have to do anything. That will continue. And perhaps you want to think about that option. It does make things easier for you and somewhat easier for us as well. So we want you to consider that. We will include some dues information. I will probably send out another email later this afternoon with information on the dues as well as, yes, the survey. So you all have received an email from me last week with a survey about return to in-person meetings. We're trying to get a feel for some of your preferences, how comfortable you are, etc. You have until the end of the day, Friday, this week, to fill out that survey. So watch your email today, this afternoon. I will send you an email with a reminder about dues, 1, and a link for the survey, number 2. And also just remember, if you already filled out the survey, don't fill it out again. You really don't have to do anything. If you've paid your dues and you filled out the survey, you can just hit delete on my email. It's that simple, okay? So next, I'm going to turn this over to Eric, who has an interesting announcement or two for us. Eric?
Sure. Great. Thank you, President Barb. It's wonderful to see everyone today. We are looking at, obviously, we're all excited. I think all of us are ready and excited for the prospect of getting back together in person and seeing each other face to face. And a couple years ago, we actually surveyed our members as far as what are you looking for in a location? And 3 things rose to the top. The first was accessibility, wanting a location that's easy to get to, plenty of parking and free parking. The second was consistency, being in the same room each week so we know every week where we're going. And the third thing was an affordable lunch. And the committee looked at over 30 different locations. And while there's a lot of great locations in Iowa City, many of them don't want to commit to the same room every week, whereas one week we might be in the ballroom, the next week we might be in another room down the hall or up the floor, or maybe one week we're in person and the next week we get bumped for a conference. So we kind of weighed the pros and cons of 30 different locations, and there was really only a small handful of locations that met the criteria we were looking for. And we ended up settling on, really, it's an Iowa City landmark. It's the place that was the place to go in Iowa City in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's been completely renovated. A new ownership group has pumped millions of dollars into it to bring it back to its past glory. And we've decided on the Highlander on North Dodge Street, right off of Interstate 80. We're in talks with them, and if everything goes right, we're optimistic that maybe we can start face-to-face in-person meetings in July. And we're maybe even hopeful that maybe we could even get 1 or 2 meetings in possibly in late June, so Barb could have a meeting face-to-face. And when we do start meeting again in person, we are still going to have the hybrid option, so you can still log on Zoom and participate. So exciting things coming down the road, and watch for more information from us in the coming weeks.
Great, thank you so much, Eric. And I also want to thank, we have a small committee of people who is working on the details and the logistics around those hybrid meetings. It is not a simple task. When we do these Zoom meetings, it's super easy because, here I am at my work computer and I can just click the button and log in. But when you look at a hybrid option, which I think is a great option for us, because then you can watch from home if the weather's bad, or if you have a health issue and you don't want to travel. If you're at work and you just kind of can't get out of the office in time and all of a sudden it's 12 o'clock, we'll just click the button and you can join us. or we really do want to see your smiling face in person if we can. But to kind of put together that technology, it's a lot of work. And so I want to thank that small committee, Ryan Bell, Bill Easton, Devin, Eric, for all the time and effort to kind of put it together. Now, we're still working out the bugs. The Cedar Rapids Rotary Club actually held their first hybrid meeting on Monday. I think they're learning, we're learning. It is a work in progress. So we're going to get there, but we're going to have to ask for your patience, because it may be challenging for us to make sure that everything is working well for every audience, whether in person or remote. So thanks for that. Next, I would like to go to Tricia Smith, because she has kind of some exciting news for us. Tricia?
Well, thanks, Barb. As you guys may recall, Ryan and Anna were outstanding campaign co-chairs for this last year's campaign. They even dazzled you with another round of trivia in their presentation last winter. But now it's time to close up that campaign and reflect on it. And I am so pleased and privileged on behalf of United Ways of Johnson and Washington counties to let you know that Iowa City Noon Rotary has been selected to receive a special recognition in honor of their service to disaster during the pandemic, and specifically the program that lifted up our healthcare workers as well as our most vulnerable in our community with the meal delivery program. And with that, we will be presenting an award to, I believe, Barb and hopefully Jim, and doing a small video, because our actual live event, which will be on June 2nd at 5 p.m., will be a completely virtual event. We definitely had to stay with this format because we usually see in excess of 200 people at our community celebration. And we still wanted everybody to have the chance to enjoy this and to lift people up. So first of all, congratulations to all my fellow Rotarians. Thank you so much for your commitment again to our community throughout the pandemic. But also, I'm going to put in the chat, please feel free to register for this event. It is virtual, like I said. It's very similar to the format you're experiencing. It's free of charge. We ask for a small donation if you can, but it's not necessary. We just want your smiling faces there. So I'll put that in the chat, but once again, thank you for everything you all do.
Isn't that great? We won an award, and we won an award for doing great work. That is awesome. Again, that's an example of your dues at work. And, you know, it was a great opportunity for us to work with our business partners who kind of all of a sudden lost our business when COVID hit, and then to help those frontline workers. And I have to say our thanks to the United Way, because helping make those logistical things happen with that couldn't have happened without Tricia and the United Way. So thank you. So next I'm going to go to Linda Farkas, who has her hand raised for an announcement. If anybody else does have an announcement, please go into the reactions and raise your hand. Linda? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, he must have muted me and I didn't know it. Devin, can you put my slide up real quick? We have something that we haven't done in over a year. The Youth Leadership Committee met this last Tuesday. Tita Kaufman, Bernie Kramer, me, Sarah Richardson, President Barb, Aaron Schaefer, Jenny Saylor from the AM Club, Mary Ellen Lewis, and the flowers that President Barb has are from Mark Ruckenberg at the Downtown Club. And the reason we met, for those that could attend from our committee, was just to celebrate that we made it through 2 rough seasons of World Affairs in RILA. And we made it, and we sent 52 kids. This year, we'll be sending them to both of those. And I think that one thing I want to point out with the flowers from Mark is that he got those flowers for President Barb because the outstanding work she's done as our president. And also, and she was the Zoom genius for 52 interviews. And none of us we wouldn't even known what to do if we hadn't been for President Barb. So thank you, President Barb. And thanks to everybody on the committee, all the interviewers for these 2 years, because they were bumpy and they kept changing. Everything kept changing by the minute. And this is our first time we've been together in over a year. And if the chatter that went on that night was indication of how much fun people were having, everybody's having a really good time. So thank you. And thanks, President Barb.
You bet, Linda. And thanks for that. But in truth, the real thanks goes to that committee, because you guys have done wonders, and you've had to pivot, you've had to change as things changed. The whole interview process, kind of work through it all. That committee has done great work. The other thing that's really cool about the Youth Leadership Committee is that it is made up of people from different clubs in the area. And you know, that's some of the cool stuff that's happening lately. Like we did the tree planting and the highway cleanup with other area Rotary clubs, and youth leadership is doing the same. There are people from downtown, from the AM club that are helping make that happen, working together in order to have an impact on the youth in our community. So thanks to that Youth Leadership Committee for their great work. So next, I am going to go to Susan Brennan. Susan is going to provide for us her Rotary moment of gratitude and positivity. Susan?
Great. Thank you, President Barb. I have to be honest, when you asked me to do this, I didn't think it would be hard, but it really is, because I feel like my life is just so incredibly blessed, and I have so much to be grateful for. And so I thought, well, what can I talk about that would be interesting? So I decided to talk about a time in my life that I felt a little bit less than grateful, and how that impacted me. When I was 22 years old, I had just started my first career in the medical sales field. I'd moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and my mom taught me well and told me I needed to set up a doctor relationship for medical care, which I did do in Nashville. And I learned after several appointments and tests that I had cervical cancer at 22. And so my only thought was just to fix it and to get it fixed just as fast as I could. And the fix, while it did, for the most part, get rid of the cancer, it did forever change my ability to have children. And once I got married, that's, you know, something that at 22 was so far off in my head, I didn't really think about it. But once I got married and we wanted to start our family, we quickly learned that it wasn't going to be an easy road. And so our years spent trying to build our family were filled with loss and sadness and anger. You name it, I think I definitely felt it. And the unfairness of all of that when I was going through that with my husband was a big hill. And it's one that still today, I don't really understand. The end result, however, of all these trials and the obvious feeling of gratitude that I have is that after lots of medical intervention and perseverance and patience, we were blessed with 3 amazing children who I adore, you know, at least most days I adore. And that does fill me with an immense amount of gratitude. But it was really my lesson in gratitude that I wanted to mention today, that recognizing the process that we had to go through to have a family has taught me just so very, very much. I think we all have times in our lives where we are thrown curveballs and it tests our strength or our faith, things that can just truly drop us to our knees. But I think it's those times that we grow the most and we learn the most about ourselves. And so that these lessons, I think, that life throws at us sometimes, getting through hard things, wading through loss and disappointment and anger, it helps us become the person that we are today. And so for all of that I went through over the years, that's what I'm grateful for. And so that's my a little bit atypical moment of gratitude.
Well, Susan, thank you. And thank you for being so honest and sharing that. I think, you know, it's amazing what we go through. And those challenges do make us the people that we are today. And I will just say that on behalf of the club, we are grateful that you are the person that you are today and that you do the great work that you do because you work for the Iowa City Community School District Foundation. And I think all of us agree, you know, it ties in nicely to Rotary's, you know, education and literacy programs. And so we want to thank you for being you and for doing the great work of raising money for our school district. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, well, if there are no other announcements before the club, we'll move on to our program. I'm going to turn it over to Devin, who will introduce our speaker today. Devin?
Yeah, thanks, President Barb. So our speaker today is Becky Soglin. She's here with us from Johnson County, and she is the sustainability coordinator for Johnson County. But she has a long history of being involved in all sorts of environmental things. A great history in terms of writing, has a couple of degrees from the University of Iowa, both in Masters of Science in Urban and Regional Planning, as well as a Master of Fine Arts in Nonfiction Writing. So she's able to, she's well-versed in sustainability and everything that it takes to do that work, and also to communicate it, able to communicate it really well. So we're glad that she's here with us. She's going to talk about Johnson County's work in sustainability and share a bunch of information with us and maybe what we can do to get involved as well. So thanks for joining us, Becky. Glad to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. What a great crowd. I think this is the biggest Zoom interaction I've had since the pandemic started. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Devin, for setting this up. And yeah, there's quite a few familiar names here. I think I see some community leadership program colleagues and folks I've actually worked with when I was a writer back at the hospital. So again, great to see you all. And before I get the PowerPoint started, I'll just also note, I do also serve on the Iowa City Climate Action Commission. And you know, all of these organizations and all the things even you do they help with our sustainability in the area. And congratulations on your award of how you were helping during the pandemic, because so much of sustainability relates to resilience, and you all are doing that. So thank you for that. And I'll get the PowerPoint started. I apologize. It will look sometimes like I'm maybe not looking at you, but it's because I'm operating two computers. And I will say it's a little bit like driving stick shift, which I've only done 3 times in my life, all successfully, but maybe not that gracefully. So I'll get that started. So let's see, is that showing up all right for everybody? Great. Okay, thank you. So again, thank you for the welcome. And I always like to start out with something that kind of centers us here in Iowa. Yale has annual polls that relate to climate change and other issues on sustainability. So this is a map that by county is showing, as you can see, of adults who believe global warming is happening. And the good news is, throughout Iowa, the majority of folks do believe it's happening. And I think you can pick out Johnson County pretty easily here. So obviously we believe that, and you can see other areas up in Madison, you know, that there's strong belief that that's happening. Now, when it comes to the impacts, though, you know, that people believing that global warming will cause harm, it becomes a little bit different. And this map is a little bit different. It's showing the difference compared to the national average. So the more green it is, the more compared to the national average that people are believing that it will cause harm to people. And the more purple, they're not kind of, you know, seeing that connection. So you can see that tells a little bit of a different story. And it is starting to change. And obviously everybody comes with their own experiences in their own community. And here in Johnson County, there's obviously lots of awareness. And that is something that our county has responded to. And these are the many things that kind of fall under the purview of my position, sustainability. You can see it's quite a range. And I'll be touching on most of these, not so much on the education and engagement, because that's just like our putting on events and, you know, kind of what we're doing here, talking and sharing information. And economic opportunity is something newer that I probably won't touch on as much, but I hope to cover most of these in a little bit of a whirlwind tour of sustainability. And I want to go back a little bit in time, and I think I saw Mike Carberry's on here, and Mike was on the board of supervisors at this time, and this was a really important way that the county was, and the leadership was very adamant that, you know, we should do things first before we ask people to do it, right? We want to try it for our own operations. And we had these basic energy goals, which were basically efficiency, energy conservation, setting standards. So when we built buildings, they would be green, and then having a way that we could foster that with an internal fund, and then look at renewables. So that was back in 2014, 2015. And then we started working on those, and I'll touch on some of the, you know, have some pictures rather than just, you know, boring, not boring, but, you know, sort of dry strategic points. But we also made sure our comprehensive plan, which is something that falls under the planning division here, made sure that we would then have sustainability, an entire chapter in that plan. And not only that, there's sustainability aspects woven into other parts of the plan that deal more directly with land use and infrastructure and economic development. And of course, you could have an entire discussion about the comprehensive plan separately. But one thing we did, kind of going back to those strategic goals that the board set back in 2014, 2015, was and I'm not going, there's no test, I'm not going to show you all 4 pages of this amazing flow chart, but this was something we created so that we could make sure that our buildings were green. And I think I saw Kevin Munson here, and his firm has helped work through this. For the GuideLink Center, we went through this process. So we made sure then we were doing that leadership in energy and environmental design. And that ensures that obviously you're building sustainability features right into the building. Those strategic goals back in 2014, 2015 also laid the groundwork for having an internal fund. So when we're doing energy efficiency, we can work with the utility company, other experts, and we often get rebates and incentives back. And to date, you can see that is quite a sum of money, close to $600,000 that we've gotten in rebates. And then we put that back into other projects. And sometimes it's smaller things, like you can see a very cheerful face there getting a water bottle filled at a station. But these are things that contribute to kind of employee wellness and you know, helping retain employees, because there's things that just in their workplace that they appreciate. And other things that we've done are, you can see down here, we had the soil quality restoration where the solar panels went up by the administration building. If you've driven by there, you've probably seen them. So when we do one project, it's not just beneficial for that specific project, it actually help other projects. This is an example of one of our lead buildings, the new relatively, I still think of it as new, but the ambulance and medical examiner facility was completed in 2014, and it went through that commercial new construction program, getting that rebate. So if you're your organization, you're in your own building, you know, this is a way that you can leverage your own project and get some rebates. Something we've always been excited about, we love talking about, is the renewables. Again, going back to those strategic goals. In 2014-15, we set that as we were going to do a feasibility study. And you may remember around that time, we unfortunately had a fire out at our secondary roads. So rather than sort of doing the feasibility study, we realized, well, there was an opportunity to add solar to that building as it was built. And that first array up here is one of the ones out there at secondary roads. And then you see that ground mount one and a couple of the rooftop ones. I don't right now have a picture of the GuideLink, which is also a rooftop. And that was wonderful that the architects, Newman Munson, and the engineering firm from the get-go, you know, we were working together to make sure solar would go on that building. That website up there, you can go to and see portals to the actual panel. So you can click on different links and see how much is being generated at any given time. And yes, if you had gone there in February when everything was cold and icy, you would have not seen very much happening. So, but this time of year, even on a day like today where it's a little overcast, you can see the generation happening. We have done some greenhouse gas measuring, the emissions measuring, and you can see in that first set of panels that our buildings and facilities have gone down. And that's partly because Mid-American is using wind, and also because we're doing some efficiencies and adding solar. Our fleet, it's a little bit harder to bring down the emissions, but we're making some progress. And our employee commute had been going up a little bit. I think we've seen around the area that sometimes people do travel further to get to work. During COVID, obviously, this really changed, and it'll be interesting to see as we get back to work in person how that changes. So I mentioned how we are able to take our own energy incentives and use them for projects within our facilities. We've tried to do something a little similar by having a grants program that helps nonprofits. And there's pictures a little bit blurry here, but it's an example of the community food distribution center where they were able to add LED lights. So it not only made it better for the environment there where people could see things, the clients could be better served, but then there were cost savings that could be put into direct services for the clients, buy more food and such. We unfortunately had to suspend this during COVID, but we have been able to invest about $80,000 in our nonprofits, and many have then on their own done other things to be sustainable. So it's not just doing the one project, but kind of getting those skills and thinking when you're doing any project, how can I incorporate other sustainable features? And I'm available if you work with a nonprofit, or actually if you even have questions for yourself, you're welcome to call me and I can talk a little bit. Feel free to bounce ideas off of me. Turning to kind of bigger solar, more out in the unincorporated areas. One thing we did a couple of years ago was look at our regulations and our processes, and we wanted to, there's a great program called Sol Smart, you see the logo up there, where they help entities like us, governments, make sure that our processes work well for the public. And we went through that and we were able to do things like decrease the amount of time it took to review permitting and create a helpful checklist. So we were able to earn Sol Smart Gold, and we're really very, I stay very proud of that. And thanks to Mike Carberry helped us connect with some of those solar experts. So we are always open to learning ourselves so that we can do the best by the people of Johnson County, and then also share our knowledge with others. And I guess I want to just a little bit more. And also with utility scale solar, what you're seeing here, that's Farmers Electric Cooperative, which is down in the southwest part of the county. And we recently just approved a project by Mid-American that will put about 2 to 3 megawatts of solar out near hills. So you've probably been hearing a little bit about larger scale solar, and it is starting to happen here. Whoops. Sorry about that. You may have heard about solar group buys, and this, in contrast to utility scale solar, which is large amounts that then kind of go onto the grid, we want to make sure that people in the area can have a chance to put it on their own homes. And so that's what the solar group buys do. They bring those smaller projects together. You're still able to get an array, say, for your own home, and also it could be a business or a farm, but it's treated kind of as one project so that as you get more participants, the pricing will go down. It starts with some discounts, and hopefully if all thresholds are achieved, the maximum discount is attained. And then collectively, it's going to make your communities more sustainable. And separately, there's also usually federal and tax credits. The entity that helps us that's helped us bring this program to Johnson County is called the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And so full disclosure, I serve on their volunteer board. They have held more than 40 group buys throughout mostly the Midwest. And some of you may recall, we did one here in Johnson County in 2018, another in 2020. And then Lynn County did them on the off year, so to speak. We give a lot of credit to them. They did it first and we learned from them. And it's been nice that we get all these collaborations. MREA also offers courses, and they have a strong equity push. So it's an excellent organization that's not just about getting solars on the homes of people who may be able to afford it, but increasing jobs, increasing training, and generally raising awareness. This was the program in 2018 called Solarize, and all of we partnered with 6 of the cities. It was an important way for us to connect with the city. So not just bring solar to people, but improve the way we could share sustainability ideas. And then in 2020, the 3 towns on the Wright, Hills, University Heights, and Lone Tree joined us as official partners in 2020. And yes, 2020 was a bit of a challenge. We had been expecting to do these in person, and we pivoted, and all of these went online. So the program did not achieve the same results, but it's still one of our top programs. You know, there's credit to the people of Johnson County. They're very interested in this. You can see in 2018, we did over a kilowatt, or excuse me, that's equivalent to over a megawatt, 1.1 megawatt. And remember, I mentioned that utility scale being done by Mid-American is 2 to 3 megawatts. So that's pretty significant to get that many households participating. And in 2020, we achieved 300. So collectively, 1.4 megawatts and 220 some households participating. And I do want to also emphasize, we had about 925 people attending these events. So we wanted people to learn about it, even if it was something they might not consider at the time. Needless to say, the derecho added another twist to everything we were trying to do last year. But you can see there's different motivations for adding solar. It can be people want to offset their carbon emissions. It can be that they want the savings, or both. We appreciate that people come at it for different reasons. So this year we are back, bigger and better. It's called Grow Solar, Lynn plus Johnson Counties, and I've put the URL up there. We've already had about 4 presentations, I think, and there will be 10 or 11 more. So you can go there, and if you're interested, sign up for a Zoom. Down below, you can see all the great partners we have. It's a little different this year. We've got cities, but also some of the nonprofits. It's been really exciting. We've had already hundreds of people attending. So I hope you'll check it out, and I can try to answer. They give the entire presentation in that 1 hour about how the pricing works. And so I won't be going into details now on that. So going from sky to land, this is a picture of some of the landscaping outside of the courthouse. Back in 2017, there was some concern about how, are pesticides being used on county properties? What can we do to reduce the amount of traditional turf, which often, can require watering? And this was one example of kind of a naturalized planting, and also an example of how we were information sharing, because we became aware of what Iowa City was doing. You've probably seen, like, outside of their city hall and in the medians on Washington Avenue, that it looks a little different in the past couple of years. They're using these kind of plantings where it will grow. You're not going to have to mow it all year. You have to manage it maybe a couple times, and then it just grows very well, and you don't have to add pesticides and water it. So we're kind of excited about maybe moving forward, doing more. We have a new physical plant manager at the county, so we'll be looking at how we handle our landscape. Another feature, which is really fun to come out and look at, is a biocell. This helps with the water quality management and filtration. This is to the south of the administration building, so you're welcome to come, and you can see our solar panels, see this, cross the street to Riverfront Crossings, and see how they've managed that landscape with their, over the past couple of years, they've been changing the park. We have a soil and water expert on our staff, and a big part of her work is making sure that within the unincorporated area, we don't have problems, from where pavement prevents proper drainage, so that any development isn't removing the important sensitive areas that are helpful not just for wildlife, but also for water management. And switching gears, to make, I guess, a little bit of a pun there, getting to bicycles. Another part of my job is helping foster active transportation through bicycling. I have to give a lot of credit to our Johnson County conservation folks. Some of you might know Brad Friedoff. Brad can give you the history of all the trails throughout the county area. But as many of you probably have experienced during the pandemic, it's been important to be able to get out, whether just for health or see something different. So the trails have been very well used, and there's even more in progress. I wanted to note the latest map will soon be available thanks to the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And other things we're doing for transportation is that bus you're seeing, that's, the county runs the Seats Transportation. This is a hybrid bus that has been part of an experiment to see if that's a way that we can go. It's able to use, I am not an engineering expert. That was not one of the degrees I got at the university, but there's a way that the braking somehow helps regenerate the engine, so it's not using as much fuel. I think that sounds accurate. If there's an engineer on, you can say that makes no sense, but I think that's how it works. And I wanted to note the Metropolitan Planning Organization right now, they have a survey available related to parking. I can send this later to you, Devin. I know it's just sometimes hard to, obviously that would be very difficult to copy down, but at that website, there's some information about their plan, and there's a survey available. And people sometimes get a little confused about what the MPO is relative to the county government, but the MPO primarily deals with transportation, and they're really serving the urbanized area and part of the growth area. So I think it's Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, Tiffin, and University Heights, plus sort of the growth area. So some of it does relate then to the unincorporated area of Johnson County, but it's really more of a metro focus. But yeah, I will get that link to all of you. Returning to operational topics, reuse is a big emphasis. I know recycling has been in the news a lot, and probably you've been seeing discussions about how recycling is not going to get us out of the climate crisis that we're in, and it's going to have to be big movement on energy efficiency changes, the type of energy, but also things like just reducing use in the first place and reusing. This is up in one of our buildings, so all employees can access it. We get about 80 to 90 visits a year. People are sharing supplies. It's saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And of course, less impact on the environment. Things don't go to the landfill. Externally facing on reuse, this is a neat combination of reuse and transportation. Our secondary roads departments, they were able to use in 3 cases, this is just one example, a railroad car bed to use as a bridge base. So these are ways that you can imagine keeping that certainly out of landfill, and even not having to have it go through recycling that's a big deal. So a lot of credit to them for making that happen. So many of the things that we have done as a county, some of them are just behavioral things. The state auditor has this program called Public Innovations and Efficiencies. We were able to participate last year, and we, yes, have to boast a little bit that we were the best performing county for the counties of our size, and we were able to get all of our departments and offices to participate. And one of the last things I'll touch on here, this goes back to the resilience issues. Adaptation and mitigation are such important issues. And this is I took this screenshot from the Union of Concerned Scientists, where they have this calculator. You can put in your location and see what the future is probably going to be like. And you can see that in that first column, usually on average, there's only 6 days per year where it's going to be above 100. And certainly there's years where that doesn't even happen. So the expectation is that as things are going, it's going to be more like 35 days a year. So, basically 1 month out of the year, it will be pretty darn hot. And by late century, 2 months out of the year will be that hot. So they estimate, though, if we take action, that bold action, we are not going to keep it at 6 days per year, but we can reduce it by probably 70–75%, what the expectation is. And these are not outright predictions, because they can't say with certainty what will happen, but given the trends, it's clear that we need to be taking action. So, and one thing I these are just such helpful tips for the difference between mitigation and adaptation when it comes to resilience planning. So mitigation, I love this, is, avoid the unmanageable, and adaptation is you manage the unavoidable. And that's where, frankly, we're at now. Some of it is adaptation. It's not that we're giving up and we're not going to try to change the things that we can change, but there are things that are already different. For instance, in Phoenix, Arizona, their road crews often work from about 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. because it is just too hot during the day. And you can imagine that's an adaptation. You're going to have to figure out, how do you work safely in the dark? How do you make sure your employees stay healthy? Because that's not a traditional time to be working from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We were fortunate, the county, that in March and early April, we went through an online training through this group that I've noted here, EcoAdapt. We focused on our operations. This again goes back to that idea that our leadership, the Board of Supervisors, has always stressed, which is we want to do things first within the county before we kind of put that out there to the people of Johnson County. We want to work on it ourselves and become as expert as we can. So we will be taking what we learned and looking more closely at things we can do to make sure our own operations are adaptable and promote that resilience. And that is pretty much everything I had. There's my contact information. I've put in a couple of our websites. Our website addresses are going to be potentially, those should still work. We are getting a new platform, and it's possible that if you go visit those in a month, there may be some problem with broken links. And just a note, I kind of had something, I think it's cut off a little, but I had the MREA address there again. Maybe you can see it, it's hard to see, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, great, thank you so much, Becky. A couple of slides back, you had some information about reduce and reuse, and you had that area with it's like office supplies and things like that. If people have things for that, what can they do? Who do they contact?
Do you mean if they have them? So this is just for our employees, or do you mean for creating one within their own?
Yeah, I was thinking there was some community service that we could donate things to, because I hate to see things like binders and folders get thrown away. And I know that happens a lot. Even with University of Iowa surplus, it's my understanding that a lot of the things like binders and folders just get tossed. Even if we provide them the surplus, that they may just end up in the landfill. And I hate that idea. And so this was for your employees. It wasn't so much
right, but I can check into that. So, because one thing we do, we sometimes offer, there's certain supplies that if they don't move out of our own surplus supply after a while, I'm kind of going to assume that they're just not, that no one's using that type of thing. And sometimes we just have a lot of binders as well. And sometimes we do offer it to the school districts. And that's one suggestion I could tell all of you could reach out probably to the school districts. And
great. And it looks like Chris actually has put in the chat that Crowded Closet also accepts items like binders, pens, folders, etc. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that does. And sometimes we do also offer them to our nonprofit agencies. We did, when we first did this a couple of years ago, we basically had a clean out your office day, and it was dramatic. We had it was all in a different room, and people were hauling them. It was amazing finds. It was like a time machine. But yeah, no one's using Rolodexes. You can kind of see one up in the corner there.
Oh, that's true.
And nobody in this county should be buying many new binders. There has to be enough binders in this entire county to
right. There has to
last
be.
us.
I won't share my own Rolodex, and I'm old school. I do have one. So
yeah, I actually have one too. I'll be honest.
I don't use it a ton, but I do have one. So I want to encourage any of our members, if you have a question, please go into the reactions and raise your hand. Becky, if you want to stop sharing your screen, and we can possibly have a few more questions as well. I do have another one. My husband and I have always been kind of interested in the idea of solar, and I know you don't want to get into pricing, and pricing can be different. However, for the average homeowner, where is that break even? Like how many years out? Like one of his concerns is that it's just too many years out until we would kind of get to the point of where we truly saw that return. Approximately how long might that be, if you know?
Sure. If we take an average array would be 7 kW, and I know that sort of seems like a meaningless number, but that's kind of the number. That will probably run about, and again, these are general pricing. So if you attend an event and they're a little bit different, go with what they're telling you on that presentation. But say that's like $14,000. You're going to be also, you then get the discounts and there's tax credits. So you're going to be paying almost half as much. And for most people, it's a 7 to 8 year break even time. It's very home dependent. And, we had approximately 220 projects through the previous 2 years. And on that, when I went through and kind of analyzed what are the means, the medians, that kind of thing. And there was one payoff that was as little as 2 or 3 years. I think it was three to 3 years. It was tiny. It was a tiny array, about 4, so about half the amount of what I just cited. And then a much larger one that I think involved a ground mount. Most of these are, what I cited is on the roof. So, you're not having to build a structure to support it, but right. A ground mount would then be a higher price.
Got it. That's great. Mike Carberry, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, President Barb. And hey, Becky, thank you so much for joining us and going through this, what the county has done and our leadership. But first of all, before I ask the question, I just want to thank you for all you've done for Johnson County and sustainability. And we're really happy to have you. It was a pleasure to work with you for 4 years. Another thing that we have led on is electric vehicle and what we call EV and EV infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit about what the county has done as far as electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure?
So thanks, Mike, for the compliment, and it's great to work with you. We were able to add some electric charging stations so that encourage employees to consider that mode of transport. And also we do have for our shared fleet, so the cars that an employee might need to drive to go to a conference or a meeting, we have we have, I think at this point, 4 chargers. We are not yet able to offer like kind of electric vehicle charging in our public lots because the way state rules are, and may even be national rules, we can't provide a fuel, and we don't charge for parking. And obviously we can't really give away electric vehicle charging for free to all the people of Johnson County. So whether there's something we once had some sort of preliminary discussion with the city, but that's something that could be explored in the past. Some of you may know in city ramps, there often are electric vehicle chargers. And then more broadly, we have been part of conversations to help make sure that people have places to charge, so that there's not that worry that if you get in your car and you drive 130 miles, you're going to be stranded somewhere. It's really changed in the last couple of years. And I don't know, Mike, if you have something to add, please do.
No, I think that's great. But Mid-American and the utilities are also making sure that they have adequate infrastructure, and the state of Iowa, the DOT, they're going to focus really on the interstate system first as people come across the state, both east and west and north and south. But you're also going to see most of that charging infrastructure in the metropolitan areas like, Cedar Rapids, Johnson County, and the like. So people, as we transition to 100% electric economy, people should embrace that for many reasons, but they shouldn't have to worry about charging their car, especially as we move forward. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So thank you.
Yeah. And if someone is considering EV and you're getting that battery charger put into your garage, I believe right now there is a rebate at the state level, or a tax credit. There's something available that people can apply for, separate from solar tax credits.
Great. Devin, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah. One of the things that jumped out at me was the fact that the emissions for the commute were going up over the last whatever 20 years, 15 years, whatever your time frame was there until 2017. And obviously that's different today. That was specifically for Johnson County employees, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do you track that at a county level as well somehow?
We haven't. There's so often averages given, and then becomes the data is a little bit confusing because like what is one counting, because we have these interstates coming through, and some data relates to the amount of traffic throughout the entire county and not to just our residents. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is also based on estimations on what your average size vehicle is. And one reason we did see things go up a little bit is, as you might know, vehicles in the past 10 to 15 years, it's really kind of gone in two directions, to the hybrids and the EVs. And then if you still have a gas-based vehicle, it's more likely to be an SUV or a pickup. Very few people own, that traditional. Some of us on this call may remember, 8 people cramming into a 4-door sedan. That was always fun. But so yeah, it's a great question, and I can see I can see if there's any data through like that we could extrapolate on that, kind of figure that out. But I had a wonderful intern, Lupe Munoz. I apologize, I did not give her credit, but she helped with that greenhouse gas study, and it is. She's an engineering student who she graduated. She was getting her bachelor's. She just graduated last year with her master's. And the formulas you need to figure some of this stuff out. It's a little harder than balancing your checkbook.
Well, Becky, I just really want to thank you for taking the time today to share this with us. Really great program, really fascinating. It really, I think it gets a lot of wheels spinning, and we appreciate that so much. I wanted to let you know that in appreciation of you speaking to our club today, our club will make a contribution to Rotary International's Polio Plus program in your name. And that donation will actually be matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation 2-to-1. And so overall, there will be 70 vaccines to polio around the world that are thanks to you and your time today. So thank you.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I actually have family members who were affected by that. So that's really extra special to hear. That's wonderful.
You bet. Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank all of our members for being here today. Reminder that you'll get information you'll get minutes, you'll get a link to the YouTube video, everything else. Also a reminder, pay those dues. And then if there is no other business before the club, I'll ask Devin to put up the slide and invite you to join me in the 4-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Again, thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.